I now call to order the regular session meeting of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs on Tuesday, October 21st, 2014 at 6:30. Roll call.
Mayor Archie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Here.
Commissioner Banther?
Here.
Commissioner Sieber,
Here.
Tonight's invocation will be given by Reverend Bob Russell of Family of Faith Church. Please stand, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance following.
Let us pray. O God, be merciful to all those who are gathered here tonight with the difficult task of making decisions that will affect this great city and its citizens. Grant the spirit of wisdom and of a sound mind to all those who are in positions of authority. We thank you once again for the opportunity to gather without fear of outside influence. I pray that each and every one use their freedom approaching these days as we go to the polls and exercise their right to vote. May we never take these rights for granted. Heavenly Father, during the approaching holidays, may we look for those who are less fortunate. When we find the down and the out, the hurting, the hungry, let us open our hearts and our hands to bless them. May we be generous in our agencies that support this need. Bless those people who give their time and financial support to help this cause. I further ask that you bless those who are serving in the armed forces, protecting the freedoms that so many take for granted. And now we submit our lives and our decisions to the only wise God forever. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now go to public comments on any item that will not be discussed this evening. Forward, please state your name, address for the record.
Good evening. Peter Delacus, 514 Ashland Avenue. First off, I would like to thank this board again for its support of Amendment 1 at the last meeting. And what I want to speak about is just to refute a few things that the Times put forth as to why it's not valid to support this. The first argument was that we shouldn't be putting legislation in the Constitution. Well, I kind of disagree with that, and Tarpon Springs does too. If you look, Irene Charter number section 30, if you look at it, it allows the citizens to gather 15% of the voting populace to put forth a referendum. This is not unusual in America. We've done this, we've called this power of the people. And if the legislative bodies don't respond and the people feel there's a need for something to be done, then they have that option. That's one of the beauties we have here. So one, we do have that right to put that forward. Now their arguments also were that the legislature then would say, well, you already have your money for the environment and that's hunky-dory and that's it. No. This is the beginning of what we in Florida really have to crucially realize about protecting our environment. It goes well beyond just the manatees and the dolphins and the stone crabs and everything else. We here on the coast, you've seen it with full moons and a lot of high tides, you can't get through some roads. So we have to find ways to make sure our environment functions normally, and we can surround that by taking advantage of a program that allows us to protect areas so we can possibly find ways to continue to, in our own small way, ward off what potentially in the future could affect tarpon substantially. The other aspect is that they were talking about the legislature looking at it as a cap. Well, if we continue to press our legislatures and put people in office that are responsive to this, then that won't be just a cap, that will be a floor. And we need to get back to the aspect of looking at Florida's natural resources for its people, not its consumers. part of, just a sidestep of that is we talk about our water drainage, yet we allow Nestle and various large corporations to draw water out billions of gallons a year at a penny of, so we have to reevaluate a lot of our things. But this, to me, is a first step. And I feel that it's imperative that voters do acknowledge that it's not an additional tax on anybody. It's a section of a tax that's already there that will go dedicated to this particular process. So I again thank the board for their consideration of this and expressing their concern indirectly for the home rule rights of residents being able to put forth petitions, but also the value of protecting our natural resources that are vital for our survival here. Thank you.
There are no other public comments. We'll go to proclamation. The first one we have is
Mayor, I think there's another public comment.
Good evening. My name's John Mills. I live at 1209 North Florida Avenue here in Tarpon Springs. And the reason for me coming in tonight, I attended a meeting last week about the storage tank at the golf course, the proposed storage tank. And I'm a property owner on the south side of the golf course and very much oppose the location that they've chosen for this tank. I don't know if there are alternative sites that possibly could be looked at, but that's would be my main request, is if, the landfill, I don't know where else it could go. I realize the importance of it. I know that the lakes are being utilized out there now, and that's not a good solution, but this is, outside of the beaches, the nicest recreation area we've got in the city. And the tank is proposed to be 30 to 35 feet tall, but it is on the highest hill in the golf course, and it will be seen from every tee, you won't be able to swing a golf club out there without seeing this tower. It's a 350,000 gallon tower that is big. It's big. It's going to be able to be seen from Alden 19 and anywhere else on the golf course. I own 1.5 acres to 2 acres on the south side that I plan on building a home on. And we're having second thoughts about it. I mean, it's going to be an eyesore in the middle of the nicest recreational area that the city has. And I would just ask that the commission have engineering look at other possible alternatives. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else that would like to speak, just come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Mitch Kruvaya, 723 Merlin's Court. I am also the president of the Friends of Spring Lake Homeowners Association. The reason I'm up here this evening is I am representing the residents of our neighborhood about the excessive noise from the Tarpon Springs High School. While I've been directed that it may be an issue with the school board and the school itself, the reason we are concerned about this is about the noise level itself. It's at an extreme, unacceptable level where we can't enjoy the outdoors of our homes, especially after 5 p.m., as well as we can't even hear our television sets inside the homes. We've asked several times for someone to come out and hear these noise levels at our homes, and it's gone ignored. I feel at this point, or we feel that we want to move forward with a petition drive. If nothing is done, bottom line is people from the school were trying to state that we were trying to eliminate the ban or interfere with that. We do not want to stop the ban. We support it wholeheartedly. We're trying to find a resolve where these excessive noise levels, it's amplified. It's not just the band. We could plainly hear the instruction from whoever's out there. Clearly whose names they're talking to or instructing way across the lake, and I'm at least 500 yards away. Once again, while we're here as City Council can hear the issue we have with this, and hopefully we can come to some resolve. Again, like I said, addressing the noise level issue, which is not just a school, but now it is a quality of life that is affecting us. It is even if in fact affecting sales of homes where people are making comments as they come through. It's a daily thing with the school. The only day we don't hear anything is on Sundays, so it'll be almost Monday through Friday, especially Saturdays. And again, we ask for your assistance in this. Thank you.
I know that there's been some emails come through about that. I would just say that, if there could be a meeting set up with him, I don't know whether y'all have met with him and the homeowners.
We've met with him, and we've actually interviewed his issue, and his people's issue are with the school and the school board, although we have utilized the school resource officer and talked with the school to intervene it, but he's been told numerous times that's where his issue is not with enforcement of us and our police department, but our SRO and stuff's been working with him on sound levels and other things, and we have been intervening, but his issue is with the school.
Well, I don't know what else we can do, and I know the chief and the rest have been involved. I just say this, is that everybody is welcome to get petitions if you want to, but after you get those petitions, I'm not sure what's going to happen with them. I mean, you give them to us up here, we give them to the clerk over there, and we're back to square one. So if it's sitting down with the school board or whomever to work out that situation, I know it's two sides to every story. We'd like for everybody to be happy, but there's only so much that we can do. And so if it's with the school board, those people sitting down to try to work out some type of solution. So any other public comments? Seeing none, then we'll go to proclamations. Item number 1 is Florida Government Week. This proclamation reads, whereas the city government is the government closest to most citizens, the one with the most direct daily impact upon its residents, whereas the city government is administered for and by its citizens and is dependent upon public commitment to and the understanding of its many responsibilities, and whereas the city government officials and employees share the responsibility to pass along with their understanding of public services and their benefits, and whereas Florida City Government Week is a very important time to recognize the important role played by city government in our lives, and whereas this week offers an important opportunity to spread the word to all the citizens of Florida that they can shape and influence this branch of government which is closest to the people, and whereas the Florida League of Cities and its member cities have joined together to teach students and other citizens about municipal government through a variety of different projects and information, whereas the Florida City Government Week offers an important opportunity to convey to all citizens of Florida that they can shape it and influence government through their civic involvement. Now, therefore, I, David R. Archie, by virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tarpon Springs, do hereby proclaim October the 9th through the 25th, 2014 as Florida City Government Week. We'll be mailing that proclamation. The next item is item number 2, is OE Day, and this proclamation reads, whereas October 28th, 2014 commemorates the 74th anniversary of Greece's refusal on October 28, 1940, to surrender to Mussolini's Italian fascist government, and whereas the historic statement, "Ohi" means no in Greek, which played a pivotal role in the ultimate victory of the Allied forces in World War II, whereas OE Day is an inspiration to those who cherish democracy and freedom, and whereas this occasion commemorates a significant event in the history of the life of Greek people, and whereas the Greeks faithfully met their obligation to their allies and their country with courage, self-sacrifice, determination, and dedication, now therefore I, David R. Archie, by virtue of authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Tarpon Springs, do proclaim October 28th, 2014 as OE Day in Tarpon Springs, and urge all citizens to honor and celebrate the memory of the brave patriots who fought for freedom, not only for themselves, but for all the free world on this important day. I don't see Mr. Sawyer here. Well, we'll make sure that they receive this. Are there any public comments on either one of these items? If not, we'll go to consent agenda. This is minutes, October 7th, regular session, satisfaction release of liens, attorney fees, Trash Mass Dano LLP invoice number 46986, and Zenzal Law invoice number 13722. Special event Seafood Festival Merchants Association, November 15th through the 16th. St. Nicholas Vespers, St. Nicholas Orthodox Cathedral, December 5th. January 2015 meeting schedule, January 13th and 27th regular sessions. Authorized execution of interlocal agreement for mapping services with the Pinellas County Planning Council. 9 is approved the fiscal year 2015 school resource officer contract with the Pinellas County School Board. 10 is increased file number 140062-C-CM, temporary employment services through Hillsborough County Aviation Authority, solicitation number 13-534-019. 11 is award file number 150004-C-RS, prefabricated pavilions through the National Joint Powers Alliance contract number 022113, playground and recreation related equipment, accessories, and supplies. 12 is award file number 150023-N-RS, single source purchase of mobile digital video cameras, accessories, and related services. 13 is extend file number 130031-C-TK, purchase of Dell computing equipment through Florida State Contract number 250-WSCA-10-ACS. 14, award file number 150025-N-CM, single source purchase of Ford original equipment manufacturer, automotive parts and services. 15, authorize the purchase of office and educational consumables through Florida State Contract number 618-000-11-1. Anything anyone would like to remove or talk about? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any public comments on any of these items? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Special consent agenda item number 16, authorized use of Florida Sheriff's Association contract number 11-10-1202, fire rescue vehicles and other fleet equipment for the purchase of a Pierce Impel series custom pumper.
Again, this is on special consent because of the price. It's for a fire apparatus replacing a 1998 one. We have Chief Young in the audience. If you have any questions, he's available if you'd like him to come up and ask him any questions. But this is simply replacing a fire apparatus from a 1998 one that we presently have.
Any questions on this item? If there are none, Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Item number 17, sidewalk improvement program for fiscal year 2015.
So when I have Mr. Function come up, he'll be doing the next two items, which is talking about our sidewalk improvement and our asphalt street repaving programs. As of checking with Erie today, we presently do have the money budgeted either in our projects or penny, in our CIP projects or penny for Pinellas to do all the ones that you see on there. So at times there are need for prioritization because we don't have, but at present time we are, as long as the costs stay within, range, and we do have some leeway, from what I was told today, that we did have enough money to do the ones that you have on the list, so.
Yes.
Mr. Funk, if we start, the first one on the agenda is the sidewalk. If you just want to talk about and let the public and remind the commission how you come about putting this list together in prioritization.
Sure, it's a biannual event here. Every other year, of course, we use this to do sidewalk, $100,000 for sidewalk and $200,000 for paving. And the idea is just to, of course, drive in neighborhoods. Our first priority is safe schools, number one, and of course, the safety of the public. The 5 streets on here, or 5 sidewalks are on here, are North Spring Boulevard and Canal Street, which would complete a complete sidewalk loop starting downtown all the way down to the docks. Roosevelt, we did a couple of years ago, and of course, we redid the seawall at the Craig Park. So this would tie in that last section from the back of the seawall up to Canal Street. Mango from Mango Circle to US 19 is a long section of roadway. At one time, it was a lot of foot traffic, but no vehicle traffic. But since the opening of Mango Street to US 19, it's heavily pedestrian traffic with no sidewalks. So that's a major part of this program. Lime Street from Shattuck Street, Lime Street from Shattuck to Pineapple, 260-foot sidewalk no sidewalk on either side of the road. Again, a lot of pedestrian traffic. Riverside Drive at Sunset, it's close proximity to the school. And again, Levis MLK, same thing. Close proximity to schools, so our responsibilities are safe schools. That's it on sidewalks.
Thank you. The reason for Riverside and I guess Levis and Martin Luther King being 4 feet because of right-of-way
Yes.
issues. Sometime if you can, when you're doing this, look at Levis from, I guess basically Tarpon Avenue down to the school on the east side. You know, there's no sidewalks there. It's in that the kids on the west side, they walk at across Levis to then where the church is at, and then cross over Tarpon Avenue, then cross back over to the west side to get to the sidewalks. You know, it's like coming down and get to Tarpon, go across the street, go across with the safety guard to the other side, then go back across the street to get on the sidewalk. Just something that maybe in the future we'll look at.
That is one of the ones we have looked at, some spots on the south side from Tarpon Ave down that we can fill in-house. North side have a couple of minor issues with some utilities that we have to move, but that is one of the, hopefully the next couple of years we can get that cleaned up.
Any questions for Mr. Funchen, Commissioner Tarpan and Commissioner Cyber?
Mr. Funchen, on the odd years, we do sidewalk construction and street paving. On the
Yes.
even years, we do brick
Road
street.
reconstruction, there's 2 different
Reconstruction.
programs.
Right.
You know, resurfacing is just, of course, the top of the road.
So even years, we do like brick streets and
Yes.
reconstruction. Got it. With the recommendation last night from the Planning and Zoning Board for the Bayshore Heights development coming forward and the extension of Eunice Drive, taking into consideration that recommendation to put Eunice Drive through, is there any consideration that we need to give to the repaving or the construction for as far as funding goes?
I don't think so. I think we'd be able to find that if it's direction of the board to do that we would have the funding in the project.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I was wondering about the timeline of these projects, especially with A and season coming up, whether they would affect traffic.
As fast as purchasing can get me the contract, as fast as we'll get it in, yes. We'd like to move as soon as we can, yes.
Okay.
If there are no questions, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second. Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Next is item number 18, asphalt street repaving program for fiscal year 2015.
Yeah, again, there's a biannual resurfacing, repaving list. It's different than reconstruction list. Beckett Bay and Brittany Park, a couple years ago, we did some, what they call micro paving. We're gonna complete that project.
in both those subdivisions. There are some city parking lots that are in dire need of repair. Mother Mears is one of them, Orange Street, the city marina. Those also need to be resurfaced and restriped. I'm open to any questions.
Is there any thought at some point to look at the date that some of these have been on the list? I know that there's a process that we go through as far as selecting these. I'm just curious as are there some that, tend to maybe be at number 11, and it seems like they will move up, but other projects come and they kind of stay in limbo there.
Yeah, what happens on resurfacing, we reevaluate every other year because it does change. Sometimes you end up with utility repair, sometimes somebody ends up putting a new driveway in. Most of these ones, like I said, Brittany Park, Hunter Lane, Briar Oak, those are streets that weren't completed in the last micro paving. So that is a number that are getting finished up that didn't get finished up the last time because of funds. But we do evaluate every year. We take the ones that we missed the prior couple of years ago, reevaluate them, see how they come up. Sunrise Drive was on the list a couple of years ago to finish up, and we're finally getting to replace that Sunrise Drive. That's in dire need.
And the good news is, as I said, that it looks like we will have the funding at these prices as long as there's nothing that comes along, unforeseen things that change these prices, which, I never take anything for granted on what's underground. But if these prices maintain and we're close to them and stuff, we'll be able to complete all these that you see on here and then be able to be ready for 2 years to start the next list. And possibly have some money to do some additional ones if we do have that and we come back, or if there's any that come along the way that you see or hear about, then, we're hoping, but again, we think these prices are good unless there's any unforeseen things, they should be good, and we will be able to complete them all. I know in the past, sometimes we've got down to 8 or we've got down to 9 and they've come off, but some of those are some major projects. A lot of these are, again, ones that are catching up after we've done major projects. So the hope is that we will be able to complete every one of them. There'll be none that have to be held over for 2 years to the next list.
That's to number 10, not the, or is that included?
No, through 15.
Overlay, okay.
Through 15.
All the way through 15.
All right.
We want to get as close as we can. One of the advantages we have right now, we already have the paperwork ready to go out to bid. The oil prices are very low, the lowest they've been in a number of years, so I want to strike while the iron's hot and get this out as soon as I can.
Commissioner Tarpani?
Thank you. Looking at number 13, the Mother Mears parking lot.
Yes.
Is there a opportunity there for us to notify the adjoining property owner whose parking lot kind of comes to the Mears parking lot behind the Mears building, DC's downtown where Zip and Ship is? And the reason I say that is because it would seem like it would be an opportunity for them to enhance, not necessarily for us to enhance it, but for them to enhance it while the equipment's there. Is there any possibility of trying to notify those people and see if they would be willing to, jump on the improvement plan?
That's very easily do. Yeah, I'll contact the owners and see if they're interested.
Is that something we can do, Mark?
Yes, I think so. That'd be good.
Usually you'll have them directly contract with the paving company.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense from an economies of scale thing,
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baffer?
Yes, thank you. I am glad to see that we have, it's at the very bottom, but the MLK in Alternate 19 West, that is a spot that I've gotten calls on. Obviously, I see the issue there, so I hope that we are able to get that done. Mark, is there any way to get a schedule from the county for the roads in town that the county maintains, for any kind of repaving schedule that they have, or do they issue that kind of thing or not?
We're going to be, Mr. Function's going to be requesting that, especially with the number one emphasis on top of the list of Riverside Drive.
Yeah, it's just horrible. I mean,
Riverside Drive is a reconstruction, not a resurfacing. That's drainage and quite a bit of work to be done to that. Yes.
So I get calls on that, and you got to explain that it's a county road, and I feel kind of like that's just a cop out when we say that, but it's the truth. But if we can at least get information that we can then give them when people call, then it helps.
Yes, Mr. Function can do that.
Thank you.
Do we ever put the bike racks and stuff in there for as mirrors. You know, we talked about that a few years ago, because it was close to the trail, but there was other things that was happening that was gonna put that in. I thought that we was gonna do some smaller spaces that, you know, you could put motorcycle or scooters and those type of things there. You know, I don't know whether we ever did that.
Not as far as motorcycle parking, no, we haven't done
It's
that.
something that we might want to think if there's some little
Sure.
extra room there that we could do that, just to encourage those individuals. If there are no other comments, Chair will entertain a motion.
I believe.
I just had one more. Again,
Oh, go ahead.
it's with the timeline and season coming up in these
Sure.
high-traffic areas, and, you know, is that being considered when these are gonna be done?
Yes, of course, once the bid goes out, then we'll have to negotiate with the contractor on his schedule too, but, yes, I will push as hard as I can to get it done as fast as I can.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other commission comments? Chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Siebert,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson.
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. Next we go to ordinance and resolution, item number 19, ordinance 2014-13, repealing section 27 of the city charter, first reading.
Ordinance 2014-13, an ordinance of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, repealing Section 27 tax increases of the Tarpon Springs City Charter, stating the purpose and intent, setting forth legislative findings, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That's the first reading of ordinance 2014-13 by title only. Second reading will be held on November 4, 2014, and published in the Tampa Bay Times on October 10, 2014. We've spoken about this before. And I think you've been provided additional backup material relative to the statutes at issue. Again, this particular part of your charter inhibits the city commission from levying ad valorem taxation consistent with the Florida constitutional limit on same, and therefore I have brought this ordinance to you and recommend its repeal.
Well, I don't know if anybody has any comments. I know we've talked about this. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. I really just want to express my appreciation to the city clerk, city manager, and the city attorney for providing the additional backup that we had for this agenda item. I think any time that we're looking at making any changes to the charter, I think we need to take it very seriously and make sure that we have all of the information possible in order to make a responsible decision. I think we really need to take the charter seriously, and I think the people in, I don't remember what the year was, but whenever this part was put into the charter, the vote was 2,237 to 1,434 to put it in. So obviously people wanted it in there. I understand now through looking at all the backup that there are, you know, legal reasons at the state level that it can't be in there. But I do appreciate the information that we have now in order to make a more informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Terrapin?
I would just concur with Vice Mayor Larson, and I just feel like the little bit of heartburn that I have with the issue, and I understand that it's a state statute for us to not be able to, I guess, legally have this in our charter, but I do have a little heartburn with the fact that regardless of whether or not we can legally enforce, the $500,000 increase, I feel like it was the will of the people in 2005 when they voted through it for referendum. So I feel like there's a little bit of heartburn to just repeal that. So I'll just mention that, and those are just my thoughts.
Yeah, the comments. You know, as I look to a motion and go to public comments, it's one that I understand where everyone's at. You know, when the people have spoken and said that they would like to have something, then it does, give you a little anxiety that, you can't do it. But, I hope that everybody understands what I understand is that the people want no tax increase. They don't want a $500,000. They don't want any tax increase. Matter of fact, they would like to have a reduction. So I think that's the basis of what every commission should look at going forward, is that, raising taxes is used as only a mechanism of trying to provide the necessary services that people want. They don't want a $500,000 increase. They felt that if you needed to do it, don't do it no more than that. But my thoughts are is that it should start at zero, and it should start at really trying to reduce taxes, and you're going from there. And hopefully you're doing a good job of trying to educate the people as to why you do anything, why you reduce it, why you have to increase it, so that they understand that it's not a waste of money, because sometimes government tends to spend money like it's not theirs, you know, it's someone else's. So it's just trying to be fiscally responsible, and I understand the anxiety that everyone have in dealing with this, but I also don't want to have something in place that misleads people that if they had to do something, they couldn't because of something that's in there. So with that, any other comments? We'll go to any public comments on this item. You know, I see one hand out in the audience from somebody know that you just come forward. I will announce you if you want, Mr. Elliott. I will announce you.
Peter Lax, 514 Ashland Avenue. Glad to hear some of the commissioners picking up on the theme I brought forth when this first came up. The mayor's right. Yeah, nobody really wants to pay taxes, but most of us are, if we're honest with ourselves, we're getting a pretty fair value for, at least I think, in Tarpon for what we pay for our portion that's really goes to Tarpon. I'm not talking about all the other little add-ons, the Juvenile Welfare Board and the school board and the county and all that stuff. But I look at, and I haven't read all the backup, but I look at that $500,000 aspect as kind of a regulator. And to be honest with you, and I'm sure the attorney would agree with this, if any commission prior to now or in the future needed to raise the mill more than a half, they could do it and wouldn't have to worry about it because it would be a legally defensible move, even though the charter may not have allowed that. So to me, again, as Commissioner Terrapini brought up and Commissioner Larson, the importance of the charter is the intent to have some kind of regulator. And I know at the last meeting when it was talked about is that, well, if we knew, you know, we were told that we had, the max was a half now, we need to do that to prepare. Well, you know what, we went through some pretty strong economic times, and to be honest with you, that's part of a board's strength is to look towards the future and say, look, we need to do this now because things may be more uncertain next year that we will need that room. And you take that stand, and to be honest with you, we've survived well over that period. So again, I'm not sure why all of a sudden this popped up as a rush to do this. I'm not sure if it could be sent back to the charter board, but if we're going to put an ordinance in repealing the will of the people, at least somewhere in the language of that ordinance, other just saying, we, the commission, repeal section 27, is that in doing so, we somehow put wording in to say we respect the will of the people and some way look to find language to continue that thought process of having some kind of a regulator on that government machine. Thank you.
Attorney Herb Elliott.
I had a few jokes, Mayor, about the missing fan down here, but I'll dispense with that. I will say, though, it's an honor to be back. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Most of you get a magazine, and we all read it, and just looking over the weekend, it says to make a good public speech, find 5 or 6 friendly-looking people in different parts of the audience and look at them in the eye as you speak. Well, I don't see any friendly faces up here, and I don't see friendly faces in the audience, but my main purpose tonight is really to have something in the minutes to explain what happened in 1994 and hopefully answer any questions you might have. I've gotten some credit for the letter that I've written to the Charter Commission, which I don't deserve, and some blame, perhaps, for this charter provision, which I also don't deserve, nor do any of the other city attorneys succeeding me in 1994. And I want to explain a little bit why. The key thing in 1994, we didn't have computerized legal research. And I was good on legal research. I was on the faculty of my law school. I was still a student teaching legal research. And the problem was the legislature put this statute in Chapter 195, which is an obscure statute dealing with the state's audit of the property appraiser when they submit their budgets and their tax rolls to the state. And it's squirreled in at the back of that chapter that nobody looks at. Municipal law is governed by, as you may know, Chapter 166, 167, in that area. And this statute should have been in the Chapter 166 type statutes, and it wasn't. That's why it was overlooked. I had been to probably 100 seminars as city attorney, and this was never discussed. And again, Mr. Hubbard, a very fine city attorney, he was not aware of the statute. Before we had computerized legal research, the way to look for this kind of law was to look in the statutory index to the Florida statutes. Today I went to the law library in Clearwater and looked at the 1994 index. There was nothing in there about this statute under municipalities or property taxes or limitation on property taxes, and it's still not in the index, the one I have in my office today. So unless you know about it or push a button, as I did in my charter review presentation a few months ago, you would not normally find it. And there was one case the city attorney did point out in the statutes, in your backup rather, that was a court case, an appellate court decision dealing with non-charter counties. And that case would not normally filter down to the various municipal law seminars that the city attorneys went to every year. Forward to 2014, and I made this presentation to the Charter Revision Commission concerning budgetary shortfalls and the consequences thereof. And in doing so, computerized legal research pushed a button, and this statute came up, and I thought best prudent to point it out to the Charter Revision Commission, and that's why we're here. On a sidelight, I did present something to the Charter Revision Commission, which they did turn down. I would like, if you have any inclination to discuss that provision before the City Commission, I'd be happy to make a short presentation and explain why I think it's a good idea. My main focus for that provision was not the City of Tarpon Springs. It had to do with the federal government, with the post office, when they close post offices, and they shut the doors of the federal government because they haven't got enough money. It's not the right thing to do. Or the school board when they close schools or get rid of certain subjects. But I had no control over that. Of course, nobody has any control over the Congress. But I thought if we could get some traction, we might get some way to save our society from this situation. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any other public comments on this item? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson,
Yes.
Mayor Archie.
Yes. The next item that we have is miscellaneous discussion, chronic nuisance ordinance.
Hey, Mayor.
Chief.
The police department wanted to bring this concept before you in partnership with the city manager and the city attorney's office. As you probably know, we are consistently faced with certain properties in the city that are not only a blight and a problem to the areas where they reside, but really consume a lot of resources from the police department, code enforcement division, and we're always looking at, at ways to find avenues to address these properties in a more effective manner. Captain Templeton and Sergeant Miller did a lot of research on this with the city attorney's office, and we discovered that some cities now have what they call chronic nuisance ordinances. And basically, this ordinance gives us a little more teeth, if you will, to go after these properties, and I'll have Captain Templeton kind of explain kind of an overview of it. Captain?
Good evening. I really have to give the credit to Sergeant Miller because I was out of state in training when he did all this research, so really it was Mr. Daigneault and Sergeant Miller. The police department would like to respectfully request that the mayor and board of commissioners consider enacting a chronic nuisance ordinance. Over the years, the police department and the code enforcement division has had difficulty in getting cooperation from a few property owners who have long-term and ongoing code nuisance, and in some cases, the properties have owners who are aware that state law is being violated on their properties. One property owner has circumvented the code enforcement process by repeatedly filing bankruptcy. Sergeant Miller did provide some photos of some of the ongoing and long-term properties that we've been dealing with. And when the Code Enforcement Board was considering some of these issues, the chairman of the board, Mr. Sansoda, brought it to our attention that some jurisdictions were using this chronic nuisance ordinance, and they've been successful in getting compliance by using that. Properties that have become a chronic nuisance and fail to even try to comply with the existing codes and state law directly affect the quality of life for our business owners, our residents, and the visitors that come to Tarpon Springs. Violations such as failing to maintain the property, trash, debris, noise, and ignoring criminal activity disproportionately consume the city services. Some of them receive special services that other businesses and residents do not, and it goes beyond the general law enforcement or enforcement of codes and compromises the health, safety, and welfare of visitors, residents, and the businesses in our city. The chronic nuisance ordinance isn't designed to address the minor issues that have compliant property owners that are working with the police department and code enforcement. This ordinance would not apply to them. My eyeballs and knees keep reminding me of my upcoming birthday. So the ordinance will provide code enforcement and law enforcement with an additional effective and efficient method of ensuring that the chronic nuisance properties cooperate in the process of complying with the state law and codes. The police department believes the ordinance would benefit the city as a whole because it gives us the increased ability to address the chronic nuisance properties. So we would respectfully request that you consider enacting this ordinance, and Mr. Daigneault, the chief, Sergeant Miller, and I can answer any questions that you might have about the legal issues and or what the police department would be doing as far as the enforcement process.
And Mayor, with that, I would like to turn over to the city attorney to explain some of the legal aspects of the ordinance.
Appreciate it, and I was giving credit there that I was not due. Actually, Tom Trask in my office worked very closely with the police department on this ordinance. Because he had done so in another municipality here in Pinellas County, he had done a lot of the research and constructed a similar code for that city, and so it was a natural transition for him to work on this ordinance for the city. I am conversant with its terms and have reviewed it with Tom as well, but I don't want to take credit where I didn't earn any. Nevertheless, the way that the ordinance, or the proposed ordinance, is constructed, and just to reiterate what's already been said by the captain, is these properties are a big problem, not just in Tarpon Springs, but throughout Pinellas County, and I expect throughout the state. They do occupy a significantly disproportionate amount of city resources when we need to deal with them, and so these ordinances are designed to catch those outlier properties rather than your typical property that comes before the Code Enforcement Board and you never see them again, which is sort of the design. But Chapter 162 is simply not designed to catch and effectively deal with these types of properties. The ordinance begins by defining what is a nuisance activity, and it does so by reference to various parts of the city's code, to the International Property Maintenance Code, as well as to state civil and criminal statutes regarding various criminal activities. So if you have repeated criminal activity at a property, those can be addressed through this ordinance as well. Typically, these issues and violations go hand in hand. Many of the properties where you find criminal activity are also not being maintained in terms of their standards and habitability and health and safety codes. So those are all sort of melded into the definition of what it constitutes a nuisance activity. And then we define what's a pattern. A pattern, certainly a nuisance activity could be, one occurrence under a statute, but it doesn't become a pattern until certain criteria are met. For example, and this is only by way of example, if the police department has to respond to a property for 3 or more nuisance activities within 30 days, that property is now chronic and now has a pattern of nuisance activity. There are some different standards, relative to time periods and failure to correct violations, but that's functionally how it works. You sort of define the nuisance activity and then you define the pattern. Once the pattern is established, then there's a procedure to be followed. The first part of that procedure is the declaration of a chronic nuisance property. Notification is made to the owner that they are have been declared a chronic nuisance property. The property owner is then required to develop an action plan and submit that plan to the city in order to correct the violations and to correct the chronic nature of the violations. The action plan is reviewed by the city staff for its adequacy, and there are some criteria in the ordinance to develop and analyze criteria and see if, okay, so if I have garbage, for example, well, I'm going to take a part of it at a time, and it's going to take me a year. Well, that probably wouldn't be considered adequate. So they're going to evaluate the adequacy of the plan relative to the problem. If the plan is deemed adequate, well, then there becomes a supervision period where the city will determine whether they're in compliance with that action plan. If the action plan is not adequate, that needs to be revised. The failure to revise it or even submit it is a violation of the article itself and can then be enforced through the enforcement mechanisms. They can be challenged. If a property is declared a chronic nuisance property, they can challenge that finding before the Code Enforcement Board, and the Code Enforcement Board's order on that, after having taken the evidence in a quasi-judicial setting, is going to be final. They have some appellate rights and everything that's attendant to the code enforcement process. And that's just part of the due process provisions of the code, make sure that everyone gets all the process that's due them before the ultimate penalty of the ordinance kicks in. And the ultimate sort of end game of the ordinance, which I really like and I find to be very effective, is that the city ultimately can issue what's called a chronic nuisance service order. After all the procedures have been followed, that order is issued, and the city can then abate the code. That obviously assists neighboring property owners with these folks that are having whatever problem that they're having. The city can abate the nuisance and then assess the cost of that abatement to the property and the property owner as a special assessment. That to me is the critical part of the ordinance. The special assessment will either be paid and the violations corrected. If the special assessment is not paid voluntarily by the owner, it can be placed on the tax roll as a special assessment and will go to the property owner as a non-ad valorem taxation item on their tax roll. Critical piece of it. The code enforcement process can be effective, particularly when you talk about accruing daily fines and the like, but you don't have those rights under Chapter 162 to do that. Then there's a collection process for all, how you perfect the liens, where the lien stands in priority. All that stuff of the ordinance is kind of boring and technical, but the fundamental point of it is that we can assess them as a special assessment to be paid on the tax roll so long as certain procedures are followed. And I think in sum, excellent ordinance, excellent way to approach these outlier properties that really they just take a lot of resources out of the folks that are doing this. So if you have any questions, myself and Catherine are happy to answer them.
I guess one that I would have is that Has Dunedin or any of those other cities utilized this, and have there been any problems for as it being challenged?
Mr. Trask originally did this after researching the matter for Madeira Beach, which I believe was having a problem at the time with similar type problems in transient properties. They have used it. I believe they have used it successfully, but I cannot speak today, and the captain may know whether it's been challenged to any kind of District Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court. I don't believe that's the case, but I could be wrong.
Sergeant Miller, he did check with another jurisdiction, and so far they haven't had those type of challenges.
I believe most of the cities that have it, it's a new ordinance, so I don't think it's had time to go through the court process, but I don't think it's been challenged as of yet.
Yeah, the ordinance is founded and predicated on the home rule power of municipalities in Florida, and for that reason, I think that were it to be challenged on that basis, I think that we would, or any municipality enacting a similar ordinance would be on pretty firm legal ground. I'm very comfortable with the way that the ordinance is crafted from from its sort of underpinning foundational theories. But again, I don't believe there's any governing case law either, and I'm certain that there's none in Florida. There may have been some emanating from another state. Certainly wouldn't be binding on us necessarily, but there isn't any that I'm aware of. And I think Madeira Beach was not the first, but is one of the first in Florida to enact a similar code.
And Jay, there's full due process built into this ordinance, review, quasi-judicial review, appeals, so, you know, there's a whole due process segment of this ordinance that's in place, so.
Yeah, I don't think on any type of challenge you'd have a due process argument. You know, I don't want to say it's just like Chapter 162, but there is notification requirements by certified mail at several steps through the process before anything's assessed. There's points of entry for the violator to come challenge before the Code Enforcement Board and at various other points as well. Opportunity to, vary the action plan based on circumstances and submit to review. So from a due process standpoint, the ordinance is very well crafted.
One question did come up when he was researching, and that was, would the police department count it against the property owner if they called us to come and help them with issues? Would that be counted against them as part of responding to that business or residence? And the answer to that is no. That would not count toward the number of times police had responded to the area.
Yeah, certainly the intent is not to hurt people who are trying to help. If they're trying to help, we certainly want to assist them in that process if we can.
One thing as I move on, I see Commissioner Sieber kind of leaning forward, so I assume that means that she has something. But one thing that gives me some comfort is I know that code enforcement and the police department have been proactive in terms of trying to educate the citizens, trying to work with citizens that want to respond to a problem. Those pictures that we saw, I know, remind me, if not all of us, of some of the concerns of when homeowners decide that through whatever method, they're not going to do anything. And it kind of ties everybody's hand. We get a lot of flack from the public as to why we're not doing anything. And really, we've done everything that we can, and everybody's bearing with the problem that seems to never go away. So to me, this is another mechanism that hopefully that we can have that would encourage people to do what we would expect that they would do anyway. But with that, Commissioner Sieber.
Oh, I want to say thank you, and I think that this ordinance could get results when we haven't been getting results, so that's a great benefit of it. And my other question was what you asked, were any other surrounding cities that have enacted this ordinance and how successful they've been with
Newport Richey used it for a drug and prostitution at a motel, and they use this ordinance. They have a similar ordinance in effect, and it worked great. They were able to curtail the problems, get rid of the problems, and now it's a thriving business again. And that was just within the last year. Their ordinance is really pretty new, too.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes, thank you. I like this idea, though especially with several like motels we have on the bayou that I know have had some chronic issues, and I would like to see those cleaned up as much as possible. My only concern, like the pictures we saw, that's obviously hoarding, you know, and that's a mental health issue. So obviously, I would support this process for that, because we have to be able to clean it up. But as far as it fixing the problem, besides just giving them outrageous fees, I mean, what, you know, will there be a mental health aspect in there? Can we call somebody in from the county or somewhere to help with that process? Because we can clean it up and charge them for it, but if they're not well, then they're just going to do it again, you know.
I think the police department's willing to do whatever we need to do to resolve the situation and then also help out. If we see it as a mental health issue, we'll reach out and try to get some counseling. But with my feeling with those is one property is $600,000 in fines and the other one's $153,000. We're never going to see that money. And I think if this ordinance was enacted, it may take a year, but we could get that property cleaned up and then stay on top of it. Where now we're in process, I think one started in 2007, the one that's in a court process where she keeps filing bankruptcy. And, you know, we're just stuck in the court process now, and Mr. Mora, I believe it is, with the city attorney's office is working hard on that to get that resolved, but it's just, you know, we're 6 years on that one, and the other one's from 2002.
When you say cleaned up, because before when I've called, especially about the one on the 304 address one, I was told by code enforcement that they could clean it up, but that they'd have to pay to store the items / garbage that they cleaned up. If we enacted this, would that be the same process? Do we have to store the items that we remove if it is a property that has massive amounts of items inside the yard?
Yeah, Mr. Daniel would probably have to answer that.
There's no provision in the ordinance now for storage, and I don't believe that one will be legally required. I mean, if you're talking, and again, this applies certainly more than garbage. But I think we would need to take a practical approach where we'd actually abate the nuisance and say, all right, we're not going to throw out a 54-inch flat screen TV. You need to distinguish between that which is causing the nuisance and that which is not, and that which is would be removed.
I just wanted to follow up on the mental health issue because I had thought of that, and I am concerned, all of us at the police department are concerned about that as well. There's a lot of services out there, but I think we would have to look at the individual case because some people have insurance, some people don't, so those are the factors that we would have to look at when trying to refer someone to mental health services. But again, it would depend on them being willing to go along with that as well. We would be willing to refer them.
I'm definitely in support of this, and especially for that side as well, but more so for the crime aspect of certain properties where it is causing a problem that is a threat to people that don't reside on that property even. So I think this is a good idea, and if it's been done well in over in Newport Richey and in Dunedin, then that's just good examples for us to follow. And I would assume that our ordinance would reflect theirs somewhat, but would have different, maybe some changes for Tarpon Springs, but would be in line with theirs as we do with most things when we do something new. Thank you.
Anyone else? If no other questions, Chair will entertain a motion and go to public comment.
Move approval. Second.
Any public comments on this item?
Yeah, you're workshopping this tonight. It's not on first reading.
Just,
We'll bring it back.
We just wanted to get your feedback so we could move forward with any adjustments, right?
Well,
Thank you.
I think we have consensus.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening, Peter Lacus, 514 Ashland Avenue. We all understand what the ultimate benefit we're trying to accomplish with this. But you do have to very carefully maybe look through this and make sure why some of the aspects you have legally aren't working, and where the some of the decision-making process of this becomes. I didn't read the ordinance before I got here, and apologize I didn't have a chance to see it, but where it describes the nuisance activity, that's page 416, chronic nuisance services. Nuisance activity means any activities relating to the following violations, whether engaged in by the property owner, agent, tenant, or invitee of the property owner, agent, or tenant. So that pretty much includes everybody. And then under Florida state statutes below, and then on page 5, there's a whole list of things on there. Even number 14 says nuisances, 17 disorderly intoxication, open house parties, you know, definitely things you wouldn't want on a recurring pattern. But what really makes me a little nervous, and you should look at this because this is a step in, as attorney pointed out, in changing how you can, in a sense, jump everybody else's potential liens or mortgages or stuff. He mentioned in here somewhere it's equivalent to the ad valorem tax. But page 6 of 16, declaration of chronic nuisance property action plan. If a pattern of nuisance activity exists upon real property, the city may declare the property to be a chronic nuisance. The city shall notify the property owner by certified mail, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can go to the correct, he's correct, you can go to the code enforcement. But my biggest thing right there is the city. City's a lot of people. Who's making the determination that this is now chronic nuisance property? Is it being brought to the code enforcement board, and they, as a representative of the city, is saying, okay, this is now a chronic nuisance, and then brings it to you? Does it come first to you, or is this just an administrative thing by the above pattern of nuisance activities? Where if you look at them, yeah, it's the police department responding, and then there's construction applications where it says nuisance activity that does not arise from the conduct of the property owner, agent, tenant, et cetera. So there's a broad spectrum of things that can be put together to create this chronic nuisance. So I'm not saying at this point not to go forward with it. I just would want to look through it a little bit more and read it before it comes in a votable form. So we make sure we're not only necessarily, but they're concerned about legal rights. And in fact, in the whereas section, it says Minneapolis, West Palm Beach, Madeira, and Dunedin. Those are probably from the Trask firm. But find out how many other cities have used it. What has been their experience? What's the cost aspect of this? Do we really, we may be able to collect something further down the line, but what's the cost aspect of getting to this originally? Are we going to hire crews to go out to the Lime Street and have everybody just clean up her property, charge her, and as Commissioner Banther says, another year from now, you have it again? There's a lot of things to look at. Thank you.
If there are no other comments, Chief got some direction in terms of this.
Thank you, Mayor.
The next item that we have is item number 21, appointment and reappointment, Police Pension Board. It said we can either reappoint Mr. Warwick and fill remaining position with someone from the selection list, or fill both from the selection list. And so we can, you want to start it off?
Start it off.
All right.
To reappoint Richard Warwick and to appoint Christopher Rover.
Mr. Seaver?
I agree. I have served on a board with Chris Angelo, and I would like to see him on one of these, either fire or police. So
Well,
I'm trying to think of, I agree that I would like Mr. Rover, but I also would like to see Mr. Angelo either on the Fire Commission or the Police Commission.
well, respectfully, we'll deal with one at a time.
I
there,
know.
So, it's hard to,
I will go
I
with-
could have gone with a motion, but, if she has another name, then we have to go down the line and see if everybody has the same.
Oh, I'll make, if you want to.
No, I'm saying, I was waiting to see what she would say, and then if everybody kind of agreed with what you were saying, then we could do a motion. But right now, it's one of the second person. How do you feel about that? You said Warwick, who's the second one?
I would agree with with Dr. Rover.
I'm in agreement.
Is that,
I was going to say Richard Warwick and Chris Angelo.
okay, so I would say Warwick and Rover, so we would then entertain a motion.
I would move to reappoint Richard Warwick to the term September 30th, 2016, and to appoint Christopher Rover to the current vacant position. Term expires September 30th, 2016.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Next we have appointment fire and pension board position filled with selection lists, and it's to appoint someone to because of the resignation of Mr. Larson as a representative. So we'll start here. Yes,
I
sir.
would do Mr. Angelou for the fire pension board.
Chris Angelo.
I agree.
Mr. Angelo?
I'll do Angelo, so we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any public comments? Roll call?
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Item number 3 is appointment and reappointment, planning and zoning. Can reappoint members and move alternate up, fill alternate positions from lists, or can fill all positions with either members who want to be reappointed, alternate lists or from selection lists. So,
Mayor, could I make a comment before we
Yes,
go into the
go ahead.
names? I just wanted to briefly comment, and I know everyone had the paperwork sitting here when we walked in. I had made a request to get attendance records for those seeking reappointment, particularly as it relates to the Planning and Zoning Board. Some of the people requesting reappointment had missed some meetings. One thing that came up in looking at this and in a conversation with the city clerk, and I appreciate her putting together this information. One thing that came up is that some of our advisory boards have their own policies and procedures as it relates to attendance. Specifically, the Planning and Zoning Board, they have a policy that states members shall notify the secretary of the board if they are not going to attend a meeting, and furthermore, if a member misses 2 out of 3 consecutive meetings without cause and without prior approval of the chairperson, the member shall forfeit his appointment. And I wanted to point that out because our different advisory boards don't all have the same policies and procedures. It is not clear to me if first of all, members of our board were aware of that, and second of all, it's not entirely clear to me if members of the advisory board are specifically given that information. Specifically here where it says that you have to get prior approval of the chairperson. I mean, I've served on the Planning and Zoning Board, and typically, if you miss a meeting, typically you end up calling someone from staff to make them aware. There's not normally any communication between a member and the chairperson of that board. So I bring this up because I think it's important, first of all, with any of our advisory boards, not just planning and zoning, but anytime we're looking at reappointments, I think it's really important that we look at attendance records. I think that should be part of our process. I know we have had some, and I don't think it relates to planning and zoning, but I know we have had some boards that have not been able to meet due to a lack of quorum. So I think it really is important that we look at attendance records. But furthermore, I think it might be appropriate, and we're not going to do this tonight, but I think at a future meeting, I think it might be appropriate for us to decide if we want each board to have the ability to make their own attendance policy, or if maybe it would be a better idea for there to be one uniform attendance policy for all the advisory boards. I don't know, Ms. Jacobs, if you wanted to add anything to that related to the information that we have? Or did I sum it up?
Just for consistency purposes, like you said, that how they're, the makeup is in there, but not the attendance. Also, how they're removed. Some of the boards vary. If you had to remove a member, how that happens, like by majority vote or et cetera. We're also looking at the process, which we're getting ready to bring back with a new application and a process for a way, but then we've come across these other things that have made it a little bit more difficult. We would have to go back, and if that was the board's decision, we would have to see exactly what you wanted to make uniformed, and we would have to go back and amend each section of every board that it pertained to. And if we wanted to include their bylaws in that section of the code as well. And I think I discussed this also with the city attorney prior, when we were discussing the other things, and I don't know if he wants to add, so we could make sure that we don't miss anything and do it the proper way, if that was the board's.
Yeah, we have discussed it. I don't really have anything to add other than to note that certainly your boards, and I'm looking at specifically the Planning and Zoning Board, is required to adopt rules of procedure. Now, typically attendance policies, sort of have loosely fallen into rules of procedure. That doesn't mean they need to. So you're certainly within your province to require attendance policies on your boards by ordinance, or require that they account for them in their rules of procedure. And certainly some uniformity, I think, is helpful. Understanding that the boards serve different functions and may need to be subject to some variation here and there.
The other, if I may make one additional comment, I just want to say that as we look at attendance records, I want to make it real clear, at least from my standpoint, I'm not trying to come down on somebody for not being able to attend meetings. I really appreciate people that sign up and choose to volunteer their time to serve on these boards. I know many of us have served on advisory boards, and it is very much a thankless job. So I really want to, more than anything else, say thank you to the people that do volunteer to serve on these boards. So as I look at attendance records, I'm not trying to nitpick at people or criticize somebody for their attendance, but I will say, if one person's not able to attend, and if we've got a list of applicants that are eager to attend, I think it's important that we be aware of attendance. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate you bringing this forward. I in terms of trying to move this process, I'm not sure if it rests with our attorney in terms of trying to instruct them to, or work with our clerk to try to see where there are some differences at.
It's probably the three of us, myself, the clerk, and the city attorney, because I can tell you that I will sure bring back, in my view, unless there's any statutory or ordinance prohibited, to have some consistency in these rules. Now, I know there may be some cases where some board has to have a certain nuance, but like attendance, removal, there are some fundamental things where I can't really see other than over the years now. There may be something prohibiting that or something, but I'd certainly like the three of us to work on all those things and bring back, because I think consistency, no matter what board, or if we have people changing boards, to, I think, as much consistency as we can get into that fairness, I think I would like to see. It just makes it easier than finding which board and which rules, and the rules being different, and it's just a confusing process, as you see. So I think the three of us should be charged with working that and bringing that back to you for review.
Well, I have no problem in agreeing if everyone does, because one of the things I see that what you pointed out for is attendance, first, it's probably not being utilized that way in terms of the secretary of the board is the one that's notified. Then it would seem that the secretary would have to notify the chairperson, and some action taken at that meeting to say that, the chairperson says that, you're approved, and it seemed like a cumbersome process. Then, while, it could lend itself to other discussions about things that maybe should not happen, that's gonna happen at those meetings, because now you got the, members talking to secretary talking to the board, and I think that we could have another process, but if everybody's in agreement to look at these and, those three that the city manager talked about, we can maybe look at that process, see some uniformity. I can tell you raring to go with that, Ms. Jenkins. So, with that, we can go to, the action today, and that's either to reappoint, Ms. St. Arnold, Mr. Vincent, Mr. Carr, Mr. Ropolis, to another 3-year term. And then it says we can appoint someone to expire, to fill Mr. Francis's term, or whatever other method that we choose. So it's kind of open. I started with Mr. Commissioner Tarpan, so Commissioner Siebert, what's your feeling?
Well, I would recommend Merlin Seaman to be appointed.
Is that as a regular member or in the alternate's place?
As a regular member.
Point of clarification, who is the alternate?
Nita Protas.
The alternate right now is Mr.
Gotcha.
Protos.
Got it. Look to me.
Yes, sir.
I would reappoint Ms. St. Arnold, Mr. Vinson, Mr. Carr, and take out Mr. Stavropoulos and put in Mr. Seaman. And then I would, and then I need one more, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, still.
Okay, and then I would put in Ms. Nils Haas.
All right, well, let's see.
Based on his background and qualifications.
All right. I can tell we got a little process going here, so we'll hear from everybody else, and then maybe we can sort out where we're at there, Vice Mayor?
I'll try to make it easier. I'll go along with what Commissioner Terrapini said. All right.
Okay. Commissioner Banther?
And I agree with Commissioner Sieber. Merle Seaman, I've often wanted him on this board for his background and experience.
And that was just the same people, and with him moving up to the other regular position.
And that would be leaving the alternate as it is.
Yes, right. That's gonna, so he would fill the term of Dr. Francis, correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
And I'll go with Mr. Seaman and Haas, so.
Would that be
I'm sorry.
That's same as the Vice Mayor and
replacing
Commissioner Tarpan.
Mr. Stavropoulos?
Yes. Correct.
Okay.
So just for clarification, Mr. Seaman would take Mr. Stavropoulos' unexpired term, or new term, and Mr. Haas would fill Dr. Francis.
Correct.
Okay.
And Ms. Potras, Anita would stay as alternate,
Correct.
correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, do you need a motion for that?
Yes.
Can I say so moved?
I got it.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther,
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. Let's see. Appointment Parks and Recreation Department. Position filled from the list.
And just for clarification, there was an additional application of Mrs. Lambrianis, so we have two now. We have Roger Howard and Mrs. Lambrianis.
So there's two to choose from. Vice Mayor?
Penny Lambrianis.
Commissioner Banther?
Well, I would first say this is another reason why we need that updated application, because I'm not too familiar with either of these individuals, but I'll go with Roger Howard.
Commissioner Sieber?
Well, just having received this tonight, it seems that Penny has some good qualifications, so I would go with Penny.
Ms. Lambrianis?
Well, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Odd man out. So can we get a motion?
Motion to approve Penny Lambrianis.
Second.
Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, roll call.
Commissioner Sieber,
Yes.
Commissioner Banther?
Yes.
Commissioner Terrapini?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Larson?
Yes.
Mayor Archie?
Yes. That concludes our agenda, Chief.
No comments, Mayor.
City Attorney,
No comments?
City Manager,
No, sir.
Madam Clerk, Commissioner Banther,
No, sir.
Vice Mayor.
One quick comment. The bottom of the first page of the memo regarding board member absences mentions that the deputy clerk spoke with Vice Mayor Larson, who indicated that he would like information on city boards that could not meet because there was not a quorum. Please be advised that she is currently working on this, but it requires substantial research, and we will forward to you once complete. I just want to say, unless anybody else wants this, I don't feel that any additional research needs to be done, so no further time really needs to be spent on that. Thank you, though.
Okay, Commissioner Terrapini,
No comments.
Commissioner Sieber.
Well, since I like to bring up the fun in Tarpon Springs, we're having an arts and crafts festival on the Sponge Docks this weekend.
And I don't have any comments, so we will adjourn this meeting at, my eyesight is correct, 7:57.
Pretty good.
Where's the sun?
Pretty good, man. That was pretty good.
That was like, in the minute that I